Okay, so now I said on the medial epicondyle, right, where my cursor is, it is a point where all the superficial flexor muscles originate from. So that we call that the common flexor origin, okay? While the lateral epicondyle, okay, let me get this off. The lateral epicondyle, the lateral epicondyle, it's the point for the common extensor origin, superficial extensor muscles of the forearm, okay? There we have the muscles originating from, okay? Now, I told you brachialis muscle from the lower house. Now, at the deltoid tuberosity, this rough portion here, at the middle 1/3, okay, middle 1/3 of the humerus, laterally at the deltoid tuberosity, we have the deltoid muscle inserting there, while at the medial aspects, okay, of the same humerus, but at the middle 1/3, we have the coracobrachialis inserting there, okay? So let's continue with muscles. Now, lest I forget, the lateral supracondylar ridge has two muscles originating from there. The upper 2/3, we have the brachioradialis coming from the upper 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge, while at the lower third of this lateral supracondylar ridge, we have the extensor carpi radialis longus muscle originating from there. On the medial supracondylar ridge, we have pronator teres originating there, pronator teres. Posteriorly, we have the triceps brachia. As the name implies, triceps means it has three heads, okay? Medial head, lateral head, and the long head, right? So the triceps brachii, the medial head is found below the radial groove, originates from the posterior surface below the radial groove, while the oblique ridge, where that is found above the radial groove, okay, the oblique ridge that is found above the radial groove gives origin to the lateral of the triceps brachii, okay? So you can see this is the medial head, right? Good. This is the lateral head, okay? And then this is what? The long head, all right? Now, case for MCQ's sake, tell you the tricep is made up of or has three heads: medial, lateral, short head, long head, short head, medial, they like twisting it. So take note, it is long head, medial head, and lateral head. While for the biceps brachii, it is long head and short head, okay? So let's proceed. Now, at the greater tubercle, right, there are three muscles that are attached there at the lower impression, the middle impression, and the upper impression. Now, the lower impression gives rise to the teres minor. I use the mnemonic SIT, SIT, S-I-T. The T there is for the lower, which is teres minor, okay? The I there is for the infraspinatus muscle at the middle impression right here, you can see it, while the supraspinatus is found or is attached, inserted at the upper impression right here. So you see these three muscles, they are all attached on the greater tubercle. The supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor, not major. While teres major arises from the scapula all the way to the front of the humerus. Okay. To the front of the humerus. This is the coracobrachialis I talked about, from the tip of the coracoid process of the scapula all the way down to the middle 1/3 on the medial aspects, okay, the anteromedial surface. Now, I'm going to hide it. Now, you can see this is your teres major, okay, from the scapula posteriorly all the way in front to the medial lip of the intertubercular sulcus, all right? This intertubercular sulcus right here, this muscle goes to the medial lip. There's a muscle that goes to the lateral lip, and there's a muscle that is found on the floor, that is attached to the floor, okay? That's where the mnemonic lady between two majors, okay? So this teres major, medial lip, the pectoralis major comes to the lateral lip, while in the floor is the latissimus dorsi, L, lady. Okay, so the L there is lady, latissimus dorsi in between two majors, your P major and your T major, okay? T major, the teres major is for the medial lip, but lateral lip is for the pectoralis major, okay? Now, the subscapularis goes to the lesser tubercle. It's attached from the subscapular fossa, originates from the subscapular fossa all the way to the lesser tubercle. All right? So the lesser tubercle is a point of attachment for the subscapularis muscle insertion. And then this is your deltoid muscle, very large muscle. And it goes to the deltoid tuberosity, like I said before. Okay? So that is the attachment of that is found on the humerus. So now let's go back to the board. Now I'm going to share my whiteboard so that we could have some 3D, some 2D diagrams, so they can appreciate it. All what we've said about attachments. Just give me a moment. Okay, so as it's loading, we are going to talk about, we've talked about introduction, we've talked about features, we've talked about site determination. Now we've talked about attachment. The last thing to talk about is clinical anatomy. Why are we studying this bone? Okay, now the reason why we're studying this bone, we have about 3 or 4. I'm just going to give you something you could use to write, or the most important of all this. One is the fact that the humerus is usually dislocated inferiorly, okay? So it comes, if the bone is to be dislocated from the shoulder, from the glenoid cavity, that is from the scapula, it will go downwards. It's because there's a whole lot of ligaments, muscles, and rotator cuff muscles protecting the humerus from dislocating superiorly, anteriorly, or posteriorly. But there's a tendency, but it's most likely that the humerus would dislocate inferiorly, okay? So I'm sure you must have seen maybe people playing football, get their arm dislocated, their humerus dislocated. You can see that they try to direct the humerus upwards, right? Try to direct it upwards because they have the mental picture that it would have dislocated inferiorly, okay? So that's one clinical importance. Another clinical importance is that the humerus has some very important nerves. Okay. Now this is the 3D diagram I was talking about. Everything has been labeled. Okay. Lesser tubercle, the tubercular sulcus is the posterior portion. All right. This is the posterior portion, the posterior diagram. Okay. Then these are attachments. All right. You should be able to label these things. Look at this is the greater tubercle with those three impressions: oblique ridge. This should be the medial head of the triceps brachii. This is the anterior aspect, lady between two majors. Okay, the lesser tubercle, something is inserted there. On the middle 1/3, some things are inserted there. Okay, the lateral epicondyle, the medial epicondyle, the lateral supracondylar ridge, and the medial supracondylar ridge. There's things originating from there. So you should be able to label these things on your own, because in your viva or your practical, you could be given this bone and they just, paint somewhere and tell you what is attached there. Okay, should be a giveaway question for you. Now, like I said, clinical anatomy, there are three nerves that are closely related to this bone. You have the axillary nerve around the surgical neck. You have the radial nerve that runs along the radial groove posteriorly. And then we have the ulnar nerve that runs at the posterior aspects of the medial epicondyle. Now, the ulnar nerve, right? I'm sure you would have experienced something like this. If you hit your elbow, right, somewhere, you feel this tingling sensation, right? That is because of the ulnar nerve. It's located just behind the medial epicondyle, okay? Crosses there, right? So if you hit your elbow there, you feel this tingling sensation. It's because of the ulnar bone. And maybe that's why the humerus is called the humerus. I mean, humor, right? So if there is fracture at the neck, you expect or you suspect that it could have been damaged to the axillary nerve, okay? If there is fracture at the middle, 1/3, you'll be scared of the radial nerve. And if there's fracture at the lower portion, the supracondylar portion, or the lower end, then you'll be thinking of the ulnar nerve, destruction or damage to the ulnar nerve, okay? So knowing this anatomy would help you in your clinical judgment. Someone coming with a fractured humerus and it's at the neck, okay, the surgical neck of the humerus, you'll be scared of, you'll be trying to think out, okay, what are the muscles that are supplying or that is being supplied by the axillary nerve, right? The areas, the skin area, cutaneous area, or the dermatomes that are supplied by axillary nerve. You try to find this, think about this, and then you do some tests. You try to pinch those areas or prick those areas to see if the person feels, so that you have a mental picture. Oh, okay, the nerve could be damaged. And the only way you can think about the axillary nerve is because you have studied the anatomy and you know that the nerve that relates to the neck, surgical neck of the humerus, is the axillary nerve. Okay, so that's the second clinical anatomy. And I think that should be enough for clinical anatomy. Another clinical anatomy is that at the lower end, supracondylar fracture, if there's a fracture at that portion, right? There's an artery that is found in the arm. This is your biceps brachii artery. It'll get compressed. When it gets compressed, it leads to something called Volkmann's contracture. Okay, you can look that up so that you can know what it is. But for your level now, if there is a supracondylar fracture, right, it could lead to damage of the ulnar nerve. It could also lead to Volkmann's contracture. Okay, something like this, contracture. Okay, so that is that for the humerus. If you have questions, do also drop it in the comment box or contact me through the number in the description box. Remember to like, follow, comment on any of our social media handles via Facebook or Instagram, and also remember to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The number, if you are interested in joining our online tutorial, through virtual classroom, everything, tests, homeworks, assignments, live videos, 3D diagrams, materials, etc. Do well to reach out to me either through email, bmsonline@gmail.com, or you just reach out to me through the number in the description box. Okay, thank you, and you have or enjoy the rest of your day.